Hello students, welcome to Learner's Planet. Let's continue with the chapter Conservation of Plants and Animals. This is the second theory session of this chapter, and in the last session I introduced that what this conservation means and how the deforestation leads to the damage or the destruction to the biodiversity. Right. So now also I explained to you the conservation of animals in the previous session. So now in today's session I'm going to explain you about the conservation of animals or the conservation of wildlife. So this word conservation, it means what? You remember? Conservation means the preservation and management of an area so as to prevent the species to become extinct, right? Basically it is a protection which is provided to the varied living forms which are found in the natural habitat, right? So for the conservation of wildlife, the first step which is taken or which should be taken is the imposition of laws so as to provide protection to these organisms. Government has taken so many actions, the legal action, so as to protect the wildlife. There are many laws which are imposed by the government, which actually bans the hunting of the organisms, right? Especially the wild organisms. Besides this poaching or capturing the animals or the birds is actually prohibited by the government, right? And of course the one which is already belonging to endangered species, for that the special laws are imposed. Besides this, the next method so as to conserve the wildlife is the establishment of natural habitat for these wild organisms. A safe area should be maintained. It should be prepared where the organisms can be set free and they could be provided the proper prevention, right? Or the protection. I'm sorry, it's protection. So what type of areas or what type of these habitats are prepared? They include like the national parks, wildlife sanctuaries, bird sanctuary or bioreserves. Right. Now, of course, when these are established, it is not merely the establishment of these areas, but the government laws are again imposed for the proper maintenance and the establishment and the protection of these areas. So now let's just see that what exactly these habitats are. So the very first one is the Biosphere Reserve. These reserves, they are actually the large areas of the protected land. And of course, this protection is with respect to the conservation of wildlife, plants and animals both. Besides these animals or the plant species, it is also protecting or it is also conserving the traditional life of the tribal people living in the particular area. So of course these are one of the way where the conservation of biodiversity is possible. These tribal people which are living in these bioreserves, they actually help in maintenance of such type of forest, artificial forest of course, and due to this the biodiversity is maintained. Not only this, the area is well cultured in that particular place so that the tribes can live over there as well as they can maintain the forest life also. Some common examples of these bioreserves are like Pachmari. It is consist of one national park which is known as Satpura, and two wildlife sanctuaries are there in this biosphere, and that is Bori and Pachmari. Right. Now this is the map of our country which is showing some common locations where these reserves are well established. Well, this wildlife sanctuary, you know what it is? It is related to the protected forest all across the world, which is maintained to preserve the plants and the animals. Certain specific species, they are preserved over there, especially the one which is in the endangered category, which is threatened, right? And of course, which is actually showing the decline in their number, right? So these wildlife sanctuaries, they actually provide protection and the suitable living conditions for the survival of such wild organisms. These are the specific area where, of course, the killing or poaching or capturing of animals is strictly prohibited. So implementation of such a specific rules or the laws actually help in the maintenance of the wildlife sanctuaries, as well as it provides protection to these living organisms. So national parks, these reserves are basically related to the maintenance of different types of ecosystems in a particular same region. You know what is this ecosystem? I explained to you earlier also. Ecosystem is comprised of all the different types of plants, animals and microorganisms in an area, along with the non-living components. In short, it is a place where the living and non-living components of the environment interact with each other so as to maintain the balance, right? So in the national park, the reserves, these reserves, they are well maintained so as to maintain the different types of ecosystem which are naturally found in the forest also. So if such type of establishments are there, then it can definitely help in the preservation of flora, fauna, landscape, as well as the historical objects of a particular region. So some common example of these are like Satpura and Pachmadi, as we have discussed earlier. You know one thing, the Satpura National Park is the first reserve forest of India, and it is a specific one in which the finest Indian teak is found. Besides this, they are also maintaining the rock shelters. There are many evidences of prehistoric human life in these forests specifically, right? And of course, they are providing the idea. They provide us the knowledge, which gives us an idea of living habits of the primitive people. Besides, the rock paintings are also obtained, they are also conserved from these particular shelters. The another one, as I said, is Pachmadi. So it is known for total 55 rock shelters. Shelters in these regions. These shelters, they are having the figures of animals and men fighting, hunting, dancing. Then musical instruments are depicted in these particular paintings. And there is still many tribals, they live in these areas. So now you can see that the conservation of such area is not only adding to the preservation of wildlife, but also it is helping in revealing out the historical evidences. Besides this, many shelters or many sanctuaries are maintained so as to provide a safe area for the growth of the birds also. Right, it is providing the natural habitat for the where they can get their food material, where they can get their own shelter, and it provides the safe breeding place also. So such an area is known as the bird sanctuary, right? Besides this, government has also started or they have launched some specific projects so as to protect the specific endangered species. And one such example is the tiger project. This project Tiger, it was launched by government so as to protect the tigers, the declining number of tigers in our country. Of course, the main objective of this was to ensure the survival and the maintenance of the tiger population in our country. It was observed that the number of tiger was declining at a very fast rate, at a rapid rate. And just to prevent this particular decline, this action was taken by the government. Now let us understand that what exactly these endangered species means, and how we can prevent or how we can protect these endangered species. So these endangered animals, they are also known as the threatened animals. They are the specific ones whose numbers are diminishing to a level where they might face extinction. That means they will be eloped out from our environment. Now, such threatened animals, some examples of these are like black buck, white-eyed buck, elephant, golden cat, pink-headed duck, then gharial, marsh crocodile, python, rhinoceros, tiger, and so on. There are many different species of these organisms. And for your information, our country, as I said earlier, that it is a zone of mega diversity. It contains 172 species of animals, which are actually considered as the globally threatened one. We can say that approximately 2.9% of the total number of threatened species are found in India. Now you can understand that how much important it is to conserve these organisms, right? It includes these 2.9% of these endangered species. They actually include 53 species of mammals, 69 of birds, 23 of reptiles, and 3 species of amphibians. So overall, these many species are specifically required to be preserved or conserved, right? And besides these, the other ones are also required to be managed so that they do not enter into this particular category of endangered or the threatened animals. Some examples of these categories are like Bengal fox, marble cat, Asiatic lion, Indian elephant, Asiatic wild ass, Indian rhinoceros, gaur, then wild Asiatic water buffalo, and there are many others. So out of these 172, some species are this one. You know how this idea comes that which animal or which species are present in the endangered animals, and which type of animals are required to get the proper protection. All this information is actually stored in a specific book. This record is actually maintained in a book known as the Red Data Book. This is actually a source book which keeps a record of all endangered plants and animals, and thus it gives the guidelines as well as it informs us that which type of animals and plants need the special conservation process. Now the point is that what are those specific reasons because of which the organisms are entering into this endangered category. I will just brief out some points so that clarify this. Well, one of the reasons that we have discussed earlier also, that is the deforestation and other type of manual activities. But besides this, some other is important reasons behind this is one of this is migration. Let's consider one example here. There are the migratory birds like Siberian crane, right? There are these species which migrate to different areas in different seasons or the during different climatic changes, right? And of course, this is for their own survival. For example, this Siberian crane, it fly away to far away areas every year during a particular time because of the climatic changes. Generally, they are going there or they are migrating so as to lay the eggs. As the weather in their own natural habitat becomes very cold and inhospitable. So these eggs cannot survive in these areas, isn't it? So to maintain the life, they are migrating to the warmer area. Now, generally, what happens, or sometimes it happens that some of these species or some of these organisms they do not return back to the natural habitat. So, like this, if such migration process continues for a very long period of time, it might happen that those birds they show the decline in the particular area. And of course, for this, if the number is to be maintained, the proper conditions should be artificially maintained where these organisms can survive properly. Besides this, hunting or poaching is another cause behind the for these endangered species. Now the point is that why such hunting or poaching is done. It is considered as an illegal act, isn't it? And there is a fine as well as punishment behind this point, isn't it? So generally this hunting is done for the valued animals part, or I can say the specific parts of the animals which are used for different purposes like ornaments. And one of the example of this is the ivory of the Asian elephants. Besides this, some body parts of these animals or the plants they are used as a traditional medicine. So for this purpose, they are of course destructed. Besides this, it is also done for the fur and hides of animals, for the meat and other body extracts, and all these are required for the human welfare. Now, it does not mean that such things should not be used, but it should be used in a proper manner. It should be done in such a way that the organism, only the particular thing is utilized, and not the entire organism is killed for such purpose. And if the such requirement is there, then the act should be prohibited. Some replacement, some alternatives should be found for such type of purposes. So this is all about this particular chapter. Further, I will come back with the new chapter. Till then, thank you so much. Have a nice day. Goodbye.